Hello, everyone. Welcome to Barca News. It is March 14th, 2026. And ladies and gentlemen, Gavi is officially back. Yes, you heard that right. Gavi is officially back. Also, Dortmund are entering the race for a center forward that Barcelona are currently tracking. And finally, Deco stopping by to watch a Brazilian promising midfielder. We have a lot to discuss, so let's begin. Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Bo. We'll begin this video with an update in regards to the Finalissima, which of course we talked about in a previous video. If you don't know what the Finalissima is, it's a match that pits the winner of the Copa America, in other words, the champion of South America, versus the winner of the Euros. So in other words, the champion of Europe. The last Finalissima that was played was in 2022, where Argentina faced off against Italy, beating them 3-0. And now we have another Finalissima, which will pit once again Argentina, the champions of South America, versus Spain, the champions of Europe. So in other words, Messi versus Lamine Yamal, the Barca GOAT versus the future Barca GOAT. Now, the Finalissima was set to take place in Qatar during this month in Lusail Stadium. But of course, as you know, there's currently a war in the Middle East. And as such, FIFA decided that they were going to move that match. As I told you in the last video, they were talking about having the match played at the Santiago Bernabeu, where Messi was set to return home to his training grounds, which is the Santiago Bernabeu. But it looks like the AFA, or the Argentinian Football Federation, has said no. Why? Because, of course, it would not be fair, because Spain would be playing at home and Argentina would be at a disadvantage. So instead, the AFA, or the Argentinian Football Federation, have suggested, London or Lisbon, which will be more neutral grounds, and maybe even Rome. So we'll see what FIFA will decide. Honestly, if they choose London, that'd be amazing, because I'm going to be in London next week. Maybe I could see it. But of course, we'll see what FIFA will decide. And my question to you is, where would you like to see the Finalissima played? Also, who do you think is going to win? Argentina? Spain? I mean, I love Argentina. I love Messi. On the other hand, Spain, man, they're looking freaking scary. So let me know, who do you think will win down below in the comment section. Now on to the next bit of news, because tomorrow is a huge day, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, we have a La Liga match against Sevilla at home at the Spotify Camp Nou. Today, Real Madrid won their respective match against Elche. That means they have shortened the distance between them and us to 1 point. So we need to win tomorrow's match in order to extend the difference back to 4 points. Also, tomorrow will be the first time the North Goal will reopen since the stadium closed for renovation. Remember, Barcelona just received a 1C license, so the North Goal will reopen tomorrow for the first time since the renovations began, extending the capacity of the stadium from 45,000 to 62,000. Also, the supporters section will be back tomorrow after being away for a year and a half, almost 2 years. Tomorrow, the supporters section will come back in a new section. Instead of sitting in North Goal, they will be sitting in South Goal in a new section called Goal 1957. And finally, tomorrow is, of course, election day, where tomorrow the socios will determine who will be the president of FC Barcelona for the next 5 years. Of course, as I've said many times, I think it's going to be Joan Laporta. But either way, regardless of who wins, tomorrow is a special day, because tomorrow us socios get to do what many other clubs don't get to do, which is democracy, ladies and gentlemen. We get to choose who will run our club for the next 5 years. So regardless of who wins, again, even though I think it's going to be Laporta, tomorrow will be a special day, because, well, it's a beautiful thing that not only is our club owned by its own socios, but also these socios get to decide who's their president every 5 years. That's a beautiful, beautiful thing that all of us Barcelona fans should be proud of. Now, speaking of tomorrow's match, ladies and gentlemen, I am proud and happy and excited and jubilant to announce that, ladies and gentlemen, Gabi is officially back. Gabi has received the green light after being away for 6 months due to injury, and the club have officially announced that with the following post on their social media outlets, which has the picture of Gabi and a quote from him that he said back in September 2025, which said, "I'll come back as many times as it takes to defend Barca." What an amazing quote by Gabi, our lion, our warrior, a player that, my God, I don't even have words to describe him because Gabi is Barca, ladies and gentlemen. If you cut Gabi open, he bleeds Blaugrana colors, and well, he has officially gotten the medical clearance and he will officially be back tomorrow. Now, whether he gets minutes or not, that's a whole nother story, but the great news is that Gabi is officially back. Of course, like any player who comes back from a very long injury, from a serious injury, don't expect him to start playing 90 minutes starting tomorrow. Of course, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a very slow reincorporation into the team because we have to take care of him. And in fact, Hansi Flick was asked about this during a pre-match press conference, and this is what the German coach had to say. "I'm happy he's back." Talking about Gabi, of course. "We have to take it step by step with him. We've seen him in training, and I like what I've seen, but we have to manage him. He has the right attitude. He trusts his body, how he can play. We all know Gabi. I love his intensity, everything he gives us. We love his intensity too," Hansi Flick, because Gabi, well, Gabi's Gabi, man. Gabi's the kind of player that gives it all, that leaves it all on the field for that Blaugrana colors, for that crest on his chest. And of course, it's amazing to know that Gabi is officially back. Now, speaking of tomorrow's match, we have more good news because, of course, as I told you during yesterday's video, both Lamine Yamal and Eric Garcia were back in training. Of course, Lamine missed Thursday's training due to some discomfort. He was back in training on Friday. He was back in training today. So tomorrow he should be completely fine to play. The discomfort had nothing to do with any football injuries. It was just an illness. And then, of course, Eric Garcia, who you see on the right next to the GOAT, Ferran Torres, the greatest player to ever play for Barcelona. I'm kidding, of course. But Eric Garcia, of course, missed the match against Newcastle. It was due to muscle overload, but he is also training with total normalcy. So Eric is also expected to be available tomorrow. And more good news in regards to injuries, because look who trained without a mask. Of course, it was Robert Lewandowski who broke his eye socket, his left eye socket against Villarreal. He missed the match against Atletico Madrid. He played against Newcastle with a mask, but now the mask is off. That, of course, is great news because, believe it or not, as light as those masks are, because they're made of carbon fiber, they still obstruct your view, especially your peripheral view. So believe it or not, even if the mask was like really wide and had a lot of space around the eyes, having it off is a million times better than having it on, especially when you're talking about professional sports where the slightest thing can make a huge difference between a goal or no goal. So good news in regards to Lewandowski, who will not be playing with a mask anymore. Now, speaking of the match tomorrow, of course, I'm going to be doing the watch along. So I hope to watch the match with many of you. And of course, afterwards, I'll do my reaction to the match. A match where some are saying that Xavi Espart could be starting, or at least be getting some significant minutes, since, of course, we do have the second leg of the Champions League midweek against Newcastle. So it's expected that Hansi Flick will be rotating, and one of those players expected to get minutes or maybe even start will be Xavi Espart, who even though only played 8 minutes against Newcastle. I like what I saw. So we will see. Anyways, on to the next bit of news, because speaking of strikers, since we were talking about Robert Lewandowski, it seems that Dortmund are entering the race for a center forward that Barcelona are closely tracking, who's no other than the Mexican Aramando La Hormiga Gonzalez. Hormiga, of course, means the ant. That's his nickname. I didn't choose it. But Aramando Gonzalez is a center forward who's currently plowing his trade for Las Chivas in La Liga MX, or the Mexican League, someone that Barcelona are closely tracking as a possible signing. come this summer transfer market. It seems that Dortmund are making a push to sign Aramando Gonzalez. Dortmund are already sending scouts to Mexico to watch this youngster. They are closely tracking him, and they say they will be watching him through the World Cup because it's expected that Javier Aguirre will be calling Aramando Gonzalez to the Mexican national team. And depending on Aramando Gonzalez's performance in the World Cup, Dortmund could make an offer for him, which of course means that it looks like there will be a bidding war for this player, because not only is Dortmund interested in him, there's also Feyenoord, West Ham, Celtic, many clubs interested in him. In fact, CSK Moscow made an offer for him, a 20 million euro offer for him, but he rejected it, choosing to stay in the Mexican league. So there's definitely got to be lots of interest come this summer for this youngster. And of course, even though Barcelona are interested, they're not looking to enter any bidding wars. Now, I got to say this, as I've said that when talking about other young center forwards like Fisnik Aslani or even Eta Young, center forward position, we need someone experienced, someone that can hit the ground running. I'm all for signing someone promising like Aramando Gonzalez or Fisnik Aslani, but only as a substitute for someone who's already well off or like experienced, someone in their prime that can hit the ground running, while this other youngster can develop, grow, and become the player that we think he can become. But as a starter for Barcelona, that's not a position that we can experiment with. But anyways, my question to you is, Aramando Gonzalez, would you like to see him in Barcelona? Yes, no, maybe. Let me know down below in the comment section. Now, let's end today's video with the news that Deco has flown to Croatia, and while he was there, he checked out a Brazilian midfielder. Now, why was Deco in Croatia? He was there to check up on Cardoso Varela, someone we've talked about a lot on this channel. 17 years old, left winger from Portugal, one of the most promising players to come out of Portugal in the recent years. He's currently playing for Dinamo Zagreb. Barcelona have already reached an agreement to sign him, but for now, he's staying in Croatia to grow and develop. And Deco flew to Croatia to check up on Cardoso Varela, and while he was there, he went to check on another player who we've talked about extensively on this channel, who's no other than Rafael Belinho. Rafael Belinho is, of course, a 16-year-old Brazilian midfielder currently playing in NK Custosija, a very promising midfielder that Barcelona have been tracking for quite some time. So while Deco was in Croatia, he went and checked up on Rafael Belinho, who could be a signing for Barcelona in the future. Anyways, that is all for this video. We'll be uploading another video in a few moments, so stay tuned to the channel. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment, and as always, Barça.